there, ref. That's he got the ball. Good evening, Tottenham fans, and welcome back to the Hotspur Social with your boys, Dave, Johnny, and Jack. And Sam will be joining us as well, guys. We've got plenty to discuss this evening. I know a lot of people think that Ange Postecoglou is the problem at Tottenham Hotspur, but I do want to have a conversation around, how much of the decline is down to the loss of Harry Kane and not replacing him properly, but also, the decline of Son. And is decline Son down to us not replacing Kane properly as well? And then other good things to talk about. So lots to talk about this evening. We'll go around the house, see how everybody is. We are under time constraints this evening, so we're going to fly through this today. Jack, how are you, my man?
Doing okay. Another week, another panel show. Good to see Johnny's face again. Hopefully we can start talking about how things are going right all the time instead of how things are going wrong. But, it's what we have to, it's what we're dealt with, Dave. It's the cards that we're dealt. We're going to try to make sense of it. Yeah,
well, big game tomorrow night. Football is a short week. What's the expression? A week is a short time in football. So hopefully we can beat Hoffenheim, maybe beat Leicester at the weekend and start putting the wheels back on this season. Johnny, how are you, my man?
I'm great. I just want to ask, has anyone seen Johan Lange? It's day 23. If anyone's seen him, can he let someone know in the Spurs community so that, we can spread the word? Because this guy is MIA. Honestly, missing in action. Don't tell me they can't get the deals done. Villa are getting deals. City are getting deals, right? Everyone's busy. I know he likes to keep his cards close to his chest, but, come on. Okay, day 23, we brought in a goalkeeper. Not saying the goalkeeper's bad, but, you want to aggravate people? This is the way to go about it. Sorry.
No, do you know what? I even seen Wilfred Zaha go out to the MLS today, and I was saying to Jack, I'm starting to get jealous. I'd even take him at this point, to be brutally honest with you. But Jack, why don't we start there? I think there's a question there on that, isn't there? About, what's going wrong this January transfer window with Johan Lange. I think it's down towards the bottom there of all the questions. So we'll start there. I would just welcome in Sam quickly as well, see how he is. Big up, Sam. Good to see you, my man. Thank you very much for rushing back from work.
That's all right, lads. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I'm not bad, thank you. I lost my beard comb yesterday and I found it today. So not everything's bad in the world of Tottenham Hotspur right now.
Well, it's definitely looking sharp. I'll give you that. A lot sharper than mine, so I'll have to go and tosh this up after this and give you a run for your money. But Jack, over to you, my man. Let's get it going.
So if you wanted to start on Johan Lange, then there was a very funny tweet the other day, actually, Johnny from Billy on Twitter, who was saying, seems that there are two viable paths for Spurs in January. One was to sack Ange, or the other was to back him with signings. Typically, Spurs have actually done neither. Another symptom, he's saying, of the piss poor leadership at the board level. But seriously, Johnny, why is it that Spurs have actually found a way to do neither this transfer window? They haven't backed Ange, but they also haven't sacked Ange. It's just kind of typical headaches with Spurs. And how have they managed to do it this time, where they've somehow managed to avoid two of the obvious paths? Whether which one you think was better or another isn't really the importance here. It's the fact that they haven't done either. It's like they're in purgatory.
Well, listen, look, let's be honest, Jack, Dave, and everyone listening here now. If you were the agent of any player that Spurs are in contact with, would you be saying to them, come to Tottenham Hotspur? Because I wouldn't. I would be saying, look, guys, this is your career. We've got to be thinking of here. We don't know whether Ange is going to be there in the next few weeks. And if he does go, what manager's coming in? What style of play is he going to be playing? Would he want you? So let's hold off until the summer, or let's wait and see what other deals come up. But right now, I don't think this is the time or place to be entertaining Tottenham Hotspur sitting in 15th place.
Can I press you a little bit more on that just quickly, Johnny? Because, we signed Christian Romero when we weren't in Champions League football. When Paratici was here, he was able to get Bentancur and Kulusevski in, even though Tottenham was a bit of a shit show at that time as well. So is it more of a case that, it's more we can't get the deals done rather than players wanted to sign on the dotted line?
This is a proper shit show, though, Dave. Where this ain't any old shit show. This is a serious shit show, okay? And, we are the laughing stock of the Premier League. The only thing that's given us a little bit of leeway is Man United are just as shit. That's the only thing that's sort of saving us at the moment. Look, Man United have got players that they can out for 40, 50 million pounds. to bring in money, whether it's Garnacho going to Napoli, which will give them some leeway, whether it's Rashford going to Barca on loan to bring them some leeway to bring someone in on loan. I can only see, personally, loans coming in. I could see a possible loan deal because that's not going to affect them with maybe a option for both player and club come the summer. A two-way option, that's something that's definitely possible. But a committed transfer, I'm not so sure now. I'm not so sure. Maybe you could sell the story to a young player, whether it's a Tyler Dibbling or a Gittins or someone like that, but that's not going to happen. You could probably sell that story to them. But someone who we need, which is probably someone mature, 27, 28 years of age, to add some maturity and experience to the squad. Yeah, would you take the risk coming to the club right now? I'm not so sure you would. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a loan. But Fabio is the man. Fabio, as we know, pulled out two out the hat in Bentancur and Kulu and changed our season. Were we as bad as that now? No, because Conte was a big draw at that time. Whatever way you want to look at it, what happened afterwards, Conte was a winner. So it's easier to sell the winning story. With Ange, how likely is it? How many true believers outside of football are there other than the Ange apologists and the Ange sexuals out there right now at the moment?
Do you know what, Johnny, right? I take what you're saying, but for me, even before we got into this shit show in the summer, Johan Lang demonstrated that he doesn't have the capabilities to bring in what we need. Even in the January transfer window before that, bringing in the likes of Werner and Dragusin, still nowhere near what we needed at the time when we needed help. And you look at the first season under Ange Postecoglou, and no one really knew what it was even going to be about. We would still be able to pull in players like, Madison, which, hasn't worked since, but like Van de Ven, players like that. And I do think... Yeah, and I do think it comes down to levels of being able to operate. I think it was Gabonini and Paratici and that were, pushing in that window. And all the other windows since, we've only brought in kids. And I don't think that's down to players that don't want to sign on the dotted line. I think that's down to, the director of football not being able to get get teams on the good...
Shrewd negotiator.
Yeah. The negotiations done to be able to trigger and go and speak to these players. I don't think he has the contacts or, even to be able to speak to agents or the smarts to be able to get the deals done. And I think that's a massive reason why Aston Villa got rid of him and looked to push on with Emery and bringing in Munchie from Sevilla because, even before this shit show, even before Ange, we got in decent. The first summer under Ange, we had a decent summer transfer window. We finished 5th last season, and then in the summer, you're thinking, okay, we're still a draw. You're getting good players now. And it didn't happen. It failed to materialize. You've seen all the rumors out there, and they all failed to sort of materialize. And then it felt like we were in a panic situation when we brought in Dom Solanke, Udeber, and people like that. Kim, a lot of youngsters very, very quickly, one after another. And it felt like we're in a panic situation. And when I look at Johan Lang and Paratici done absolutely everything at this football club. He was able to combine young recruitment with players for the here and now. Johan Lang is yet to demonstrate that. And, that's why I don't buy that players won't sign here in January because of the shit show, because I do think it comes down to Johan Lang not being able to
Combination. Yeah, combination. Look, any guy that brings in Steve Gerrard and thinks he's going to win the title with that guy, which is what he did. Look, if we look back historically, we were sold the dream that Tottenham Hotspur needs to get rid of White Hart Lane and we need to bring this big stadium in so that we can compete with the top clubs in the Premier League. Pochettino had to go 2 windows with no players, but we believed in the dream. We believed the story that one day this club is going to be competing. So here we are, fast forward, we're in this big stadium, we're bringing in massive revenues, and yet the players, the wages that we are paying has been reduced. We've reduced our wages by over £30 million. If you want top players demand top wages. We do not pay top wages. Our ratio between earnings and wages is But saying that, our wages to ratio should mean that we're sat there probably 6th or 7th. But I think the big problem is, if you're a top player and someone's offering you, Dave, 300 grand or 200 grand and Spurs are offering 120, where are you going in modern day football? And that's where we are at. That's where we're at. So whatever way you want to dress it up, if we were a club with ambition, instead of cutting wages to try and make the books look attractive to investors, we should be taking the risk of bringing in a player and saying, you know what, this is the player, this is the guy we're going to stake our future on, and we're going to pay you 250 grand a week, and break the wage structure and start to act like a big club which has ambitions to go further forward, not go into reverse, which is what we should have done when we were in that Champions League final. It was our opportunity to kick on and take this club to another level. Unfortunately, in those 5 years, it's been a decline. It's been a decline in our football and the type of players we brought in.
I can't remember,
100%.
Johnny. Someone said, I saw on a tweet, I can't remember who it was, said that getting to the Champions League final was one of the worst things that could have happened to Spurs. Because obviously, let's not get it wrong. That was one of the greatest nights of my life. Was that Lucas Moura, I was going absolutely ape shit with my dad and my brother in the living room, and I flew out to Madrid just to soak in the atmosphere. Obviously, we only got 30 seconds of atmosphere before it was all, Spursy. But I think about that tweet a lot. And I guess it kind of says, like, we papered over the cracks for so long. We signed no one for 18 months. Yeah. And Pochettino, by the skin of his teeth, dragged that team, and Lucas Moura as well. And, a few of these players dragged that team to the Champions League final. We got to January, we sold Moussa Dembele, or we let him go. Okay, admittedly, we've heard in times after that, like, he was basically done by that point. He had nothing left to give physically. But we then go, and we're still basically in the same position where we've never found a replacement for Dembele. And if I remember correctly, we ended up going like a year without actually winning a game away. And that we're in a similar position again. We've had a few managers that have overachieved and managed to get us fourth with, again, like, minimal backing. And I know that you can argue that Ange has had backing in terms of players, but we're talking genuine backing. And then it goes to the what's it called? The wages, that you're talking about cutting it by 30 million. That's not backing. As you say, no top player wants to come to Spurs because you're not going to pay the money. And I'm not asking the club to go and give Nico Williams 400 grand a week to come play at Spurs. But we need to be competitive, and other teams. And I saw someone in the comments saying there's no way that you can tell me players are going to go to Forest over Spurs. And it's like, but if Forest are going to offer the money and they're showing genuine ambition and they're third and we're 15th and sinking, then why wouldn't they? They've got structure right now.
Yeah, and you're walking into a non-dumpster fire situation. It is just baffling, though, that Spurs have found a way to do neither, right? They've shown no real backing to Ange Postecoglou that's in any way significant, but then they also haven't cleared up any of the real rumors around, Ange's future. It feels like we're just left in some sort of limbo between the two, and it's amazing that they have actually done that. You would think that they would just sort of pick one or the other, and they haven't.
And look, that's probably why we're sitting here 3 weeks into the January transfer with no signings, right? Because there should have been an admission from the board, coming into this window, because of the situation we're in. You're going to have to pay extra to get players in, as quick as you want. You're probably going to have to be prepared to pay a little extra in wages, and we obviously haven't shown that. We still want to negotiate the way we've been negotiating previous windows, and that's where the frustration comes in around it, is the urgency of this situation. And and I think we've got proof, even in such an urgent situation, we're not prepared to go and break the bank to come out of it. And I think that should be warning signs, for everybody around ENIC and Levy. The fact that they're not prepared to go and break the bank. They would happily let this go further. Sam talks about the Champions League final. come that January, they knew there was no Wanyama Dembele. They could already see the drop-off because of their injuries and stuff like that, and they didn't go out in that window and bring in a proper midfielder to sort of cover that. You probably have different fortunes maybe in the Champions League final or, stuff like that, and we have a history of this, and, I think it's just piss poor. It's just piss poor, and that's why we're sitting here. We'll probably get, one or two late deals done, but, they're willing to save money and sacrifice points, sacrifice, games. That's the risk that they've been willing to take, and it's nowhere near good enough. And I think that has to wake everyone up towards the ownership, the risk that they're willing to take with this football club to still do it their way, and this is where fans get annoyed. We just want, if we're like, we've sat there, we've given you patience, we've tried to see it your way, we've given you enough leeway in terms of revenue and stuff like that. But now, this is where fans get annoyed. When are you going to help us out? When are you going to alleviate our fears? When are you going to step up and do things a little bit differently, to help us out? And they just don't want to do it. So I think, this January should wake everybody up.
Yeah. And in a way, this probably could transition us, though, to the title of the show, which is about some of the struggles that we've been having around this team and Ange Postecoglou. But maybe this is worth asking, which we haven't maybe asked before. Ange Postecoglou is the first manager to experience a post-prime Kane and a Kane departure, but also maybe a declining Sonny. When you think about all the previous managers, they actually had a prime Kane and a Son at the same time, and then combine that, right, with the conversations about investment that we've just been having, right? Is Ange Postecoglou maybe the first manager to deal with a lack of investment, but then also maybe not having Kane and Son at their best at the same time? So what extent, guys, can we attribute Tottenham's decline over the past 2 seasons under Ange to maybe the noticeable decline of Son as well as the departure of Kane? How much has the failure basically, been attributed to that? And is that something maybe we haven't thought about enough? Johnny, what are your thoughts on maybe the club's struggles, maybe the past 2 seasons having to do with the fact that Ange hasn't had the same luxury that the previous managers had?
I think the complete opposite, actually, Jack. I'm sorry. I actually think that he's been afforded luxuries that no other manager has got. He told the club exactly who he wants rid of. I mean, look how much deadwood he got rid of in that first window, the second window, the third window. All the deadwood's gone. All the players, bar Ben Davis, the guy who runs our book club, everyone else is gone. All the former players, they've all gone now. So what did he do? He cleared the decks and he brought in the players. Look, if you'd have given Pochettino 300 million, I'm not going to go into the exact amount of money. Look, people will argue till they're blue in the face that he hasn't had this, he hasn't had that. Believe me, he's had more backing than Pochettino, more backing than Conte, more backing than Mourinho and Nuno. So this idea that poor old Ange, he hasn't had any players, he hasn't had this, he hasn't had that. He's had what he wanted. I mean, this is a guy who signed Timo Werner not once, but twice. I mean, what didn't he see in the first signing that inspired him to go and sign him a second time? And let's be honest, right? He's even worse the second time round than he was the first time round, which is something. So this sort of narrative that the guy's not been backed, I'm sorry, I can't actually buy it. But I think the decline has been maybe over the 5 years, and what we were talking about before, which is, with the revenue that came in from the Champions League, and continuing in the Champions League, we should have been looking at bringing in a type of player that, fits the competition we're in. With the greatest respect, not signing players from Bournemouth and lower league clubs, a club of ambition. I don't remember, I'll be brutally honest with you, I don't remember the last time I was megally excited about a signing since we signed Van der Vaart, right? That was about the last time I thought, wow, right, this is, we're going play. We loved him, and the fans were excited by it. When did we go, We're going to buy Bruno Fernandes. No, we end up with Gedson Fernandes. We're going for Trossard, and we end up with Dan Juma on loan. Come on, guys. Come on. Let's be serious here, right? Let's be serious. A club with ambition. You're selling me the dream. We're paying the most expensive season tickets in Europe, and I'm being fed. I've been sold a story of steak and champagne, and I'm getting fed hot dogs, half-eaten hot dogs, right? That's what I'm getting fed. And
watching hot dogs on the pitch while eating drinking champagne.
I just think that, where we are is what we deserve in essence. Maybe not 7th, 15th where we are now, but we are, with the investment that we've got, we deserve mid-table, quite honestly. Listen, I'm not going to go on a Solanke. Solanke works his butt off, but for me, he's not world class, right? He's not world class. Gyökeres, £10 million more. Cunha, all right? I could list a whole load of players who I think would have taken us to the next level. I'm not going to slag Solanke because Solanke's worked his arse off for this club. So it is what it is. It's not his fault. But I can go on, but I won't.
I hear what you're saying, right? And I think, it's a fair question to ask, was Ange the right appointment, the post-Kane era and heading into the Sonny sort of on the decline era? I think there's fair questions around that. But, and you see all the stats in terms of he's the worst manager, this, that, and the other. But I pose the question, if Conte didn't have Kane and Son, if Jose didn't have Kane and Son, would their stats also maybe reflect that? And I think to a large degree, maybe not as bad, but I don't think they'll be, too far better. And I think you have to look at it, the season we ended up selling Harry Kane, he put 22 points on the board in terms of winners and equalizers that season. You look at Son last season, he put points on the board, but then this season that's completely fallen off. And you look at our league positions and the way they're dropping since, I think there is a direct correlation, I think, people can't overestimate, how much Kane and Son done for this football club, how consistent they were every single game, offering a threat, putting points on the board. What we're seeing now is a team that's very up and down. Against some teams, we can put 4 and then we go weeks without scoring. And that is due to the quality of your forward line. We don't have them any longer bailing us out. And I do think to a large degree, yes, you can blame Postecoglou for absolutely everything, but I think we've got to be smarter here. And I do think you've got to factor that in. You look at what we've replaced them with. Even tried to get ahead of the situation. We bought Richarlison in from an Everton team fighting relegation. Solanke from a Bournemouth team lower down in the Premier League, usually fighting relegation. Same as Johnson, Udebur from a relegated Burnley, Maddison as well. Nowhere near the levels and standards of Kane and Son. And we simply have pissed that money around. And I do think, when you look at the quality of the players we're watching, we all have our problems with what Maddison's displaying. We all have our problems with what Johnson's displaying, etc., etc. People have their problems with Solanke. People have their problems with Richarlison, etc. And it begs the question, they're just not as good as what we once had. And we haven't spent the money right. We haven't even spent it anywhere near half right to put anywhere near a decent forward line together. And I do think that has to be factored in. If we really want to move on and we really want change, there does have to be an understanding that when they're not providing the assists, when they're not putting the goals on the board as consistent as they once were, you have to factor that into what's going on now, that there is a massive decline, without Kane and Son and with what we've put together in replace of it.
Isn't not Ange, though, part of that same decline? You talk about I totally agree with what you're saying, Dave, about the level and the quality of our signings being of lower class. But is not Ange another extension of that? Having waited 4 months to find a manager, that we find a manager with the greatest respect from Celtic, from a league, from this league, is that the level? For me, Ange, no disrespect to Ange, I don't blame him for taking the job, but that is just, a mirror image of the type of signings that we're making of a lower standard. Instead of aiming for the stars, whether it's a Nagelsmann or whoever it is, and the signings of a higher caliber to get the fans excited, to get the turnstiles going, to get the juices flowing of fans, that Ange is just another mirror image of that. It's not his fault, just the same as it's not Johnson's fault or whoever's fault that they're not good enough, the signings that, we're killing at the moment.
look, I'm not going to dispute, it's hard to dispute that maybe Ange is a part of the reason, but, you have to factor in, how much Kane and Son have done for this club, how much they held us at a certain standard for quite some time. And, the rapid drop off now that we're not seeing any input from any of them, and I think, to a degree that has a bigger effect on Tottenham Hotspur than the manager, to be quite frank. That's just my opinion on it.
But your level, Dave, the point I'm making here is that I totally agree with you. No one can really disagree. But my point is here is the signings and the quality of level of signings that we're made since Harry's gone or before. Listen, the reason why Harry left is because the quality of signings that we made to back him up were not good enough. Right, it's as simple as that. And now we've gone and appointed a manager, which is, look, we've gone down. Let's be honest. Like the level of managers, we've gone Poch, we've gone Mourinho, we've gone Conte, and now we've come down to the basement. I'm sorry, it's basement. No one's going to tell me that he's on that level. And if we had ambition, we would be signing players of a higher quality and we would be bringing in a manager of a higher quality. And the two go hand in hand. And quite rightly, as you said, if you take Kane and a prime Sonny out of any team, they're going to be affected.
I agree with maybe what you're trying to say, Johnny. I think, that's regardless of whether I think Ange is good enough or not, or whether you think he's good enough or not. But the way I'm seeing it is kind of connected to the conversation we had earlier. And I think Sam should come in as well. But like we were talking about, every manager has sort of had the same issue of dealing with Levy type signings, not really having enough quality in rotation. No. They have a few players they depend on, but the rest of the squad, they don't really rate. There's a bunch of signings that were brought in they don't actually want to use or don't really find that are actually worth, bringing into the team on a regular basis. They don't trust half of the players they have available, all these type of things. Like Ange just had to deal with the exact same thing. Maybe they had it a bit worse than Ange, but I'd still say he's had to deal with some of the same things. It's just that he hasn't had the bailout that Kane and Son were for those managers. Like they were a huge factor in us getting over the line against big teams, or us getting bailed out in games where we would win 4-3, against a top level side, because Son and Kane were just an attack all on their own. You didn't even need, an extra forward half the time. They could just do it themselves. And I don't think Ange has had that same bailout, cheat code, whatever you want to call it, that Spurs used to have. And if we're still kind of buying players the same way we used to with other managers, which basically means not giving them enough to really compete and achieve what they want, then he kind of always was set up to, in a way, struggle, or in a way fail, because if he wasn't going to have the bailout that Kane and Son was, and he's still going to get the same Daniel Levy transfer strategies, then it's never going to be that easy. But sorry, Sam, I think should come in.
No, I agree. Go on, Sam.
I was listening to Dharmesh Sheth on Last Word on Spurs yesterday, and Ricky was asking him similar questions about, the kind of backing in terms of player quality and the number of players that Ange is getting. And he kind of alluded to the fact that maybe I hadn't really thought about before, which is like, okay, and I'll sort of add some context to this. Like, Ange was by no means the first choice, right? I think we can all accept that. We tried to get lots of managers, supposedly, according to the media, the main one being Johnny's man, Arne Slot, right? And Slot decided to stay at Feyenoord instead. And, maybe that's because he'd already been told by Liverpool, we're going to come in for you when Klopp goes. And he was looking at it thinking, well, why the hell would I go to Spurs, who give the managers nothing, have a rebuild they've been putting off for 6 years, and it's just a mess, and they don't play the money to get other players in. So you're looking at it and thinking, okay, I'll go there. So Anges are effectively one of our only options, unless you want to go down the the jokes that we were having last week and saying, like Sean Dyche, Sam Allardyce, managers like that. And unfortunately, like that is what was left. But he came in and the first 10 games, as I've said before, I don't think they were as amazing as people make out, but they were good results wise. And since then, we've just had injury after injury, and the club just allowed that to happen. Whether or not that's Ange's fault because of the training or what, but the stuff coming out of the media, and maybe you think that Ali Gold, personally don't, but maybe you think he's just a club mouthpiece, and he says things like, they can't even do the level of training that the people think they do, because they have a game every 3 days. They have to have a break after every game, and then they do sort of like a lighter sort of training session. Obviously, we've now ended up losing Saar in training as well, and it does feel like a vast majority of our injuries come from training. And maybe we're just super unlucky, right? Maybe we're just super unlucky. But it kind of ties in a little bit with that super chat that one of the chats put in. I think that basically no one's leaving because there's no one to play. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we've got 9 outfield players that are available to play, like first teamers that are available to play in Europe tomorrow. 9 outfield players, and whether Reguilon is desperately trying to get out or the club want him gone, you can't. I know that he's not even in the Europa League squad, but you can't let him go because the players are dropping like flies. And even if there was necessarily bad apples, Ange has said he doesn't want players in the club that are going to bring the wrong message to the dressing room and take the group morale away and whatever. You genuinely don't have the luxury of making those cuts, and
without replacing them, you would need to replace them.
Exactly. Yeah. And this leads me back to what I was saying about Dharmesh Sheth. Is he was saying when Ange came in, the board would have told him the transfer strategy. And the transfer strategy, as we've seen, is investing in young players for the future. And I'm not against signing young players. I'm excited by the rumors of Tyler Dibbling. But to go and sign another 18-year-old in the context that we're in right now makes absolutely zero sense. We need players to come in with proven quality. I mean, it's just another kick in the balls that he's actually injured at the moment as well, and he's the main one we're being linked to. But I feel like Ange would have known the constraints he was working in. I feel like every manager's been told the constraints that they're working in, but it falls down to the board to basically say, pull your finger out, because if you don't want this club to sink even further and you want to back a manager, how is not bringing any players in by January 22nd backing the manager? We needed players in that first week of Jan, if not the first day of the transfer window, where it's coming to the point where you're basically just agreeing little bits of stuff with other clubs. And maybe that is happening in the background. I don't know. But, 22 days into the window suggests that there's been a real lack of planning yet again. And the board of sort of gone happy-go-lucky. We'll see what happens. Maybe we'll take a punt. We're interested in trying to get David on a free. I'm not saying I don't want David. I'm just saying these are the kind of signings that we're going for. We've heard stuff about Skriniar. I personally don't believe that Skriniar would have been a player that we were trying to bring in, because Ange has kind of made it clear, I don't want players that don't fit the system and you're just bringing in for the sake of it. And maybe Skriniar's a 30-plus-year-old Radu Dragusin who also doesn't really fit the system. I like Radu, don't get me wrong, but this is tough for him at the moment in a system that doesn't suit him, and basically surrounded by the backups of the backups of the backups. And I know Jonny says we should ban that word, but that's what they are right now in those positions, because we don't have anyone else. No, and, we might end up playing. Sorry, Jack. I'll say my last thing. We might end up having to play like a bunch of 16-year-olds against Hoffenheim in the Europa League because there's no one else.
Well, just on that, just quickly, the team news.
A good point, Sam.
Yeah, it's a very good point. But just quickly on that team news, Bentancur is back tomorrow. Matt Sarr is set to miss out, and rumors are Dom Solanke is out till March now. So that's the latest update coming out of the press conference as it's going on. Sorry.
It's not even raining or pouring. It's flooding at Tottenham Hotspur. Blaine Devlin saying, "Evening, gents. A question not asked by others and a different view maybe is why haven't we sold anyone in January? No players publicly wanting out? ? Does that suggest that they're backing Ange or just enjoying an easy pay?" Jonny, would you like to come in on Blaine there?
Who are we going to sell? Seriously, though, who are we going to sell? Right, really? I mean, like we can't even put a squad together. Listen, right, if I don't see Will Lancashire through the middle tomorrow night, okay, I'm gonna absolutely bloody lose it, right?
You don't think it's going to be Richie?
But they're looking to loan Lancashire out, aren't they?
Listen, look, this is bloody nonsense, right? This is a kid you throw into the furnace of Galatasaray, but think that it's too much to play him at Tamworth, right? Come on, guys, really, seriously, right? I've seen the kid play. I've seen the kid play many times in person, under 21s, under 18s, right? The guy's got great movement. He's got great timing to when to be in the box. He's got a fantastic eye for a goal. He's got good physicality.
Strong,
he's got butterfly swimmer, big shoulders. Give him a roll. Give him a roll. That's how some of these things happen. Look how many players in the Premier League right now are only there because of injuries. And lo and behold, suddenly they're given a chance to grab it with both hands and suddenly a star is born. I'm not saying he's going to come along and, be the next Harry Kane. What I'm saying to you is, though, the guy's been kept there for months on end. What happens if Richie breaks down? Really? Seriously? What? Are you going to play Son? You're going to play Son up front? Again, we've seen it. We've been through that. Eat, sleep, repeat. No, thank you, right? Give the kid his moment. I'd play Richie out on the left. If he had to, I'd play Richie out on the left and play Mikey Moore out on the right. And just see how it goes. Let's be honest, Hoffenheim are making Southampton look like prime Barcelona at the moment. So I think I think there aren't many players. Reggie, you can't let Reggie go, even though he won't play him. Even if we didn't have any left backs, he'd probably still struggle to put him in. I don't think there's anyone to sell. We should be buying or loaning. But like
we can't even do Levy's favorite strategy: sell before we buy. We have so few players left. We have so few players left. He can't even do his favorite strategy.
Look what we did to Davinson Sanchez, right? Okay, now whatever you think about Davinson Sanchez, what he can do is play a high line, right? That's probably his best thing. Put him in a low block, he's pants. High line, recovery pace, fantastic. Saw it against Barcelona. What do? Window closes, let's sell him. Well, bet your bottom dollar what was going to happen. We were going to have injuries, and then we were wishing we had Davinson Sanchez.
I'll never wish we had Davinson Sanchez.
No, but what I'm saying is, when you've got no players, right?
Yeah.
When you've got no players, you don't leave yourself short, right?
Yeah.
Cut off your nose to spite your face. Davinson Sanchez, Reguilon, whatever you may think of them, would have added in those windows. We can't afford to sell anyone else. But as Sam said before, it's absolute bloody nonsense. You know the situation. The injury crisis didn't happen yesterday, did it? It didn't happen a week ago or 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. We knew. And if Ange, Lange, and the rest of them, and Munn, who honestly are just a laughing stock, the whole thing's a joke, were worth their salt, they would have had their plan. It's no coincidence that Man City have signed Race from Palmeiras, Mamouche, Kishinov, and others, and they're still looking to sign more, right? They needed problems. They had problems. They sorted it and done it.
It's amazing to see clubs that are probably in less of a disaster scenario than us that have already made more than one signing, to piece together whatever issues they might have been experiencing. Like Aston Villa is a great example. Like, it's amazing that they've been busier than we have this window, when you would say that they probably don't have nearly as many holes to be fixing as what we have. But sorry, Dave, I think I cut across.
No, but what's even frustrating about is, you heard Postecoglou out there in November, December, I want forward players, I need forward players in the door, I need extra players in the door. He's been calling for it, and they still haven't come out. And, the only thing they brought in was a goalkeeper, which, look, he's a great goalkeeper, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't the most emergency out of the whole situation. You know what I mean? There was other areas that were more important than the goalkeeper. Don't get me wrong. The goalkeeper has come in and he's helped to a certain degree, but we needed players outfield, and they still haven't delivered any. We've loaned out Alfie Dorrington. I think the plan is to loan out Will Lancashire. I believe Dane Scarlett's back at the football club. That might free up the loan move for Will Lancashire, but we're not in a position to be letting anyone go right now. I think it won't be long before you see Jonny at centre back alongside Sam, the Maverick in midfield, and Jack up front. It's not going to be too long before you see that, so we can't really afford to let anyone go. But I wonder, is it also maybe holding up some, certain loan deals for some youngsters as well, to a certain degree?
Thank you for the support, by the way, Blaine Devlin, and it's good to see you in with us. Appreciate you, my friend. And then Shawnee Maddox, maybe give this one to the fellow midfielders, Dave and Sam. Not having Kane and Son doesn't mean Ange should be given a free pass, lads. Would another manager get more out of this squad? I say yes, and Ange is a bad fit. Maybe compare that to Dennis Daly, Sean, who maybe feels differently. He's saying if we had Kane, we'd be top 4 this season. We lost many games by the odd goal. Two different ways of looking at it. Some people think Ange is being given too much of a pass with this question, Dave. Some people think this is exactly what they've been wanting to hear.
Look, the question isn't designed to give Ange a pass, and not one of us on the panel said we're giving Ange a pass because of it. But you have to factor that in. You have to factor it in. At the end of the day, you go back to Dennis Daly's comment. He's absolutely spot on, Jack. When you look at a lot of tight games we've been in this year, who usually steps up in them tight games for Tottenham Hotspur? Harry Kane or Son. It's always been one of them in the years gone by, or them two combining to create them, put them points on the board. And that's exactly what we're missing in this system. We talk about all season about the lack of leadership. It was the same, Postecoglou spoke about it to a time, and there's different leaderships. But what Kane and Son used to do was step up on the football pitch together and bring that and put points on the board. And we're missing that this season. When the games get tough, we're absolutely crumbling. Now, there is an element, so, in a maybe the last couple of years, there's been that element to a degree, but 9 times out of 10, if we put points on the board, it was because of Kane and Son. The points I'm talking about that Kane put up the season before he left, you're talking about equalizers and winners, big moments, stepping up, helping us get over the line. And that is exactly what we're missing in this team. And, the reason why I don't blame Ange Postecoglou for it is because I sat here 2 years ago when everyone wanted to come on and tell me how wrong I was. I said, once you see Kane's sold, we won't replace him properly. You'll see decline of Son. He's already in his 30s. That's going to happen. We won't replace him properly. We won't even get ahead of the situation. And this club will career towards a relegation battle. Everyone told me, Dave, you are mad. Here we are today. Because of it. And, for me, not giving Ange a pass for it. At the end of the day, he's brought in here. The manager has to work with what he's got, and he's got to try and make it work. We can sit here, scream, moan about what Levy doesn't do. At the end of the day, he's got to do what every other manager has done and try to make it work. But you can't just sit here and ignore that point altogether. It's half of the reason, if not a bigger reason, why we're here. Losing Kane and Son is much more of a bigger impact on this football club than any manager.
I think Ange is far from blameless, but I do feel like if we're going to accept that the transfer strategy hasn't improved that much over the years, or, hasn't made a significant impact or improvement, then we always knew that it was going to be very difficult for Spurs to properly replace Kane and properly replace a declining Sonny. And I think we're sitting here feeling like they kind of haven't done. So we have to then, in my opinion, give Ange that bit of grace then, that he hasn't maybe been given the tools to replace what have been the best players for decades at Spurs, players that have bailed out multiple managers in multiple games. And if we're going to continue down the same Daniel Levy transfer strategies, then I think you have to give you have to give Ange that sort of leeway where he wasn't, given the same tools necessarily as previous managers would have. And yes, they were let down, not a lot of great defenders or midfielders, but right now, he needs really good forward players and good attackers, and he doesn't have the same forward players and attackers that the previous managers did. And those forwards are some of the best that we've seen in decades at Spurs. Like, that's how significant they were for us. But I think we were going to move on to Sonny's decline. But Sam and Dave, anything further on
just quickly, I wanted to bring up, so I know Sam wants to come in on this quickly there as well. But Sam also alluded to Wanyama and Dembele. Still sitting here waiting for adequate replacements for them. You know, and the worse this keeps, the more we keep failing to do this, the worse it's going to get. You'd like to think, you know, with Romero and Van de Ven, if you can get them out regularly enough, and you know, with the goalkeepers we got now, you'd like to think, in essence, we've replaced the centre-back partnerships to a degree. You know, we've replaced the goalkeeper, but everywhere up, we're still struggling because we haven't replaced it properly. And you're almost getting to the point, like, we could bring in another manager. Do I think another manager is going to get better out of us, out of this squad? To a large degree, no, I don't. They don't have two world-class players to bail them out like every other manager has had at Tottenham over the last decade. Sorry, Sam, I think you wanted to come in.
Yeah, look, I think myself included, a lot of people were naive about Ange in terms of we didn't actually know what kind of manager he was. To a lot of us, he was just a name. You know, you looked at his record and you thought, yeah, he's won trophies, and yeah, he's been in lower leagues, but you know, maybe he could work within the constraints. We saw, you know, to go back and maybe, you know, as some other people, I'm stuck a bit in the past. But you go back to Pochettino and you think this guy worked within the constraints of the board, you know, to his benefit. And against any input from the board and Daniel Levy, and he managed to basically skyrocket the club to being basically there or thereabouts in terms of winning trophies every year. And you know, ultimately he failed, and I think that he gets a bad rap because he didn't win a trophy. And people look at, you know, people post these throwback teams where you see the lineups of like Kane, Son, Dele, Eriksson, Dembele, Wanyama, Jan, Toby, you know, all these players. And people are like, oh, how didn't he win a trophy with these? But you have to provide context. Those players were not or at least not all of them were the players that they have ended up being at the time when Poch was there. He had to nurture a lot of these players. And looking back at it now, you think, whoa, those are some big names. I just think, look, I'm not a scout. I'm not a tactician. I'm nothing to do with football, but I love it, right? I don't know who comes in to do a better job, but I do think that there are people out there who could do a better job. And to go back to my original point about, you know, being naive to Ange, I thought this would be a guy who would come in. I don't know, maybe I'd heard from the wrong people, but I'd heard that he'd be open to playing the youth, and you know, we'd build this project from the ground, and we'd go from there. Look, I see Johnny laughing, but I knew nothing about the guy. I didn't even know how to say his name, yet let alone spell it. But we've seen, in my opinion, we've seen a stubborn rigidity that has cost us in a lot of moments. And you know, I hated Conte, right? I wanted him to come in, and I wanted Jose to come in, and I will admit they were mistakes for me to want them to come in. I also wanted Poch sacked, but that was because I didn't see it going anywhere. And I'll be the first one to hold my hands up and say, like, I've got 5 out of 5 decisions wrong in a row, right? But I'm not there to make decisions. I'm there to look at the facts and, you know, come to some sort of conclusion that has no effect on Tottenham whatsoever. I just, like, you know, I look at managers like Iraola, and this is not me saying that we should go and spend 20 million or whatever to go and get him in, because I don't think the club would ever do that. But I look at that and people are saying, oh, you know, they went and beat Newcastle 4-1 and they had like 7 injuries. And admittedly, again, there's context to those injuries. They weren't all starting players, and they haven't had a sustained period of injury like we've had. But Bournemouth are nowhere near the stature of Tottenham Hotspur. Their players, in my opinion, aren't as good on the whole as Tottenham Hotspur. Yet they're getting the maximum out of their players, and they're in the top 7 or something. I just think that someone could come in, and maybe we'll all have to suck it up and accept that we were wrong about playing pragmatically. But someone needs to come in and just build a foundation that we can then move off of. And if we have to suck it up and play some turgid, defensive minded football, I'll bite my tongue and I'll accept that for the time being. And I, as we've said for a while, and a few months ago, I said, if things don't turn around come sort of the end of February, I think Ange will be gone, and we may already be there. If he doesn't win against Hoffenheim and he doesn't win against Leicester, then those are another 2 marks against his name. God forbid he should lose one of those games. Where do you go from there? And
that's why people are kind of at steadying the ship kind of panic stations right now, right? Just someone who can steady the ship.
Exactly. And if we don't bring anyone in, then the chances are we are going to drop points. We absolutely smashed Leicester in the first half of that first game, but that doesn't get you a trophy. That doesn't get you the points. We ended up hanging on at the end. Given all the context of the game, they deserve to win it towards the end. They had the chances to win it because we didn't take ours. But so these aren't going to be easy games, and these are teams fighting for their lives. I think the only saving grace, as my last point for the Hoffenheim game, is they may be more concerned with trying to stay in the Bundesliga rather than putting everything into this game. But it's a one-off game. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, Dave and I had a conversation to that effect on the members preview, and we seem to think the opposite, that maybe they'll be doing what we're doing, which is, pretty much seeing if they can give their fans something to cling on to, which would be a cup run of some kind, some sort of cup competitions to be looking forward to. Dave, I think our next question was around Sonny's decline, but did you have any sort of final thoughts around this stuff? Or
No. Look, we'll keep it moving. We know Johnny's got to go very soon. So what we'll do is we'll let Johnny in on the subject and then we'll let him go.
I was just going to add, guys. Sorry, I was just going to add that I can't take this narrative either. That the attacking players, he is getting the choice of his attacking players. He chose Maddison, he chose Johnson, he chose Solanke, right? He chose the players. He chose Timo, not once, he chose them twice. Okay, so, this thing where he hasn't had the players. Look, great teams are not always about Galacticos. Great teams aren't always about a group of fantastic individuals. A team is harnessed by a top manager who manages to make them play as a collective. Sometimes,
but are we not guilty of making everything Ange's fault here, though, Johnny? Because in the same breath, people say Postecoglou doesn't have the right level and stuff. But then when it comes to players, now we're saying, it doesn't matter about the quality.
No, I'm saying there's a balance here, right? Look at Leicester, right? Leicester didn't have any outstanding. This thing that I'm giving a counterbalance to my own argument that you don't always just have to have a team of unbelievable players, because sometimes they don't gel as a team. Even though Man City have got injuries, they've still got fantastic individuals, but it's not gelling. Leicester didn't have a group of outstanding individuals, but won the title. Tottenham somehow, if you said at the beginning of the season, Tottenham somehow got to the final of the Champions League, most people wouldn't have believed you. But there was a camaraderie, there was a unity to that team, that they were so gelled together that they beat teams which maybe on another day, as individuals side by side, they wouldn't have had the chance. But they were united as a team. And that's all I'm saying is this team at the moment, even though it doesn't have the Galacticos and the outstanding stars, on top of that, they don't seem to be united as a team. There seems to be players that are performing and others who have down tools. And therefore, it's a double whammy effect of not good enough players and players not gelling.
It is.
That's it we're saying. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
I'm glad you came in on that. Johnny, we only have so much time left, and we also have to give yourself a plug. We were going to talk about quickly the decline of Sonny here. Rob Wallace, though, did gift out 10 memberships. Thank you very much, Rob. That's very, very kind. And please, everybody, take advantage of Rob because he's gifting these out. We want to see some debuts happen. Gary Becks was gifted one. JB Cleveland, I assume. JB Clee. Cornelius Day. AK Shegs. AK, make your debut, my friend. Karate FC, big up to them. Giannis Robulus, great name. Simon Gooding, Jake, Warren, and Smithy all been gifted memberships. So please, everybody, come on, take advantage, have your say. We don't bite, Dave or I. Please, love to see some debuts on the fan show. But Johnny, we did want to get your thoughts maybe on just Sonny's decline, whether you think it's happening or not. Salah is the same age as Son, let us remind you, and he's been involved in 75% of Liverpool's goals this season, while Son has clearly been noticeably declining. Just a few seasons ago, though, Johnny, they were sharing that golden boot of the Premier League. Could Son's decline be connected to, this conversation around Harry Kane, and also maybe there not being another top-level forward for him to play off of? What's the reason behind the decline for you?
Look, he's played 400 minutes more than Salah has played 400 minutes more than Sonny at a high level. Don't forget, he's playing in the Champions League week in, week out. He hasn't missed a game. I don't think you can blame anything other than the mindset or whatever's going on at the moment for that mishit shot against Everton. He completely fluffed his lines, and it's not the first time. There's an old adage in football: confidence breeds confidence, and his is shot to bits at the moment. And I don't advocate or like the abuse that he was getting from the fans after the Everton game, but I do question why, as the leader, he didn't go over to the fans. And, it was only Maddison that went over. He had to cajole the rest of them to come over. As the leader, you have to take the good times and the bad. And right now, it's the bad. I don't understand where there's literally a month apart in age, and yet they're playing football on different planets right now. And yes, Liverpool are a better team. Yes, they may be surrounded by better players, but look what Salah is doing on his own. He's producing moments of magic out of nothing. You would see Sonny on the edge of the box drop his shoulder and curl one in into the top corner. We haven't seen that. We know that he doesn't have the legs and he's not beating his man out wide. That's understandable. Well, what's not understandable is his reading of the game, his passing, and the shots, the curling the ball in. I mean, the goal against Arsenal, I was cheering, thinking that it'd gone in because it was at the other end, and it was a big deflection that took that in. He's so far away from the Sonny that we all know and love. And let me tell you something, I was over the moon when we signed Son, and I was gutted when I heard that he wanted to leave the club. This was back in Poch's day, and Poch had to talk him round to staying at the club, and what a great decision that was. But I don't think this is something that has just suddenly happened, guys. I really don't. We started to see some of the decline last season, and I think it's continued this. I would have liked to have seen other players play on that left-hand side and bring Sonny on for 20 minutes. There's nothing wrong with him winning a game or, having a massive influence towards the end of the game. But I don't even feel like he's the leader on the pitch. I mean, I was at the Arsenal game and some of the others. I didn't see anyone going mad and lifting those players there. And that's what your captain's meant to be doing. I don't think he's a leader anymore on that pitch. Do I still love him? Yes. Will he always have a place in my heart? Yes. But unfortunately, he's a shadow of the player that we've witnessed over the last 7-8 years.
Do you know what? It's a hard one to call when it comes to Son because, it was only 2 years ago he shared that golden boot with Mo Salah. One thing I will say about Mo Salah, though, is he's got a lot more competent players on his level to a large degree around him, to work with and stuff like that compared to what Son does. I do think, since we've sold Kane, you look at last season, we tried him up front, we tried him out wing. He had a better season last season than what he did this season, but you could see it was a one-man forward line. You know, we were constantly relying on him. We didn't have anyone to, you know, feed a lot of his runs and stuff like that. You know, it was all mainly on him. And, you know, this season, I think, you know, to a large degree, you know, how much of it isn't being overused, the fact that we're depending on him so much, you know, a player at his age, ideally you want to be able to dip him in and out. You know, we don't really have that luxury right now. But, you know, to a degree, was the decline already in place under Conte? You know, wasn't there a period there where, you know, he was in and out of the team up till October, November? Maybe were we seeing it then? So it's really hard to judge, you know. Is he on the decline, or is he just, does he not have anyone on his level to be able to work with? You know, with that relationship with Kane, it was telepathic. You know, he knew exactly where Kane was going to be. Kane knew exactly where he was going to be. And 9 times out of 10, you could put the ball into Kane. He turned, he fed Son. Now we're looking to hit Son every single time straight away, and it's very readable. And I understand it because he's your best player, but he's not the sort of guy that can hold up the ball, right contact and stuff like that. You almost want other players to do that, and for him to make the run and people to feed him. And I think he is, you know, taking a massive hit in that regard, just like Dom Solanke is taking a massive hit because people can't cross the ball. So for me, to be honest with you, Jack, it's a really hard one to judge. You know, you can't deny that the older you get, the less of a spring chicken you are. You know, the bones get sore. You can't move as quick and stuff like that. But I think it is really hard to tell until we get a player in that is competent, that can play with Sonny.
I think that's a huge factor. Another thing I would just quickly add is, I know Salah, like you put in the stat there, Dave, he is scoring 75% of Liverpool's goals. But let's say he were to be taken out of the team. You look at the players they do have in around him, you would think that they have other guys that they could technically lean on, or at least they brought in guys that they would expect they could lean on. They brought in Gakpo, they brought in Nunez, they have Jota, they have Luis Diaz. We would take all of those guys, maybe not Darwin Nunez, but we would take all of those guys.
I'd still take Darwin.
Maybe you take Darwin if you're a Darwin fan, if you're a chaos, you know, lover. But all those guys are usable, very worthwhile players to have around, and we don't have anybody like that in and around Sonny at Spurs. So it just shows that Liverpool, despite still depending on Salah and his contributions, in a way, like Spurs are actually depending more on Sonny than even Liverpool all are on Salah. Like, Salah's producing better numbers, but look at the players in around him. If he were to drop out of the team, they do have other weapons, they do have other guys. Whereas with Sonny, I know he hasn't been playing well this year, but once he drops out the team, like, again, who are we looking towards? Timo Werner, a 16-year-old Mikey Moore, Brennan Johnson. Like, it is threadbare when it comes to that. And that's just also a significant factor, is even though Salah is contributing at a really high level, they're actually not even relying on him, I'd say, nearly as much as we are technically on Sonny, despite the numbers being very different.
Can I just drop this news? Apparently, Ange Postecoglou just admitted in a press conference that
no signings.
Tottenham won't sign any more players this window. I mean, it's an absolute disgrace.
But I seen another statement saying that, they're expecting 2 in before the window closes.
Well, apparently in the press conference.
Just said in a press conference.
Just said in a press conference.
That's disgusting.
Johnny, might as well then let you go away from this headache of a club.
I mean, look, guys, let's try and remain positive. Look, Hoffenheim are worse than us. They've had a massive decline. They got gubbed 5-0 by Bayern Munich, and Karadzic, I think it's how you spell it, came out and said, Karadzic said he thought the club were absolute shit, and he was going light on the club in comparison. Will they turn up? I'm not so sure. I actually think both these teams that we're facing in our next 2 games are both winnable, and I believe we're going to win both of them. Leicester are absolute shocking. Even Southampton are improving under this new coach more than Leicester. Ruud could be out before he had time to get the desk warm. So I'm going to go for 2 wins for against Hoffenheim and Leicester. I don't know what you guys think, but that's what I'm going to go for. And I'd love to see, finally, Callum Oluwesi actually get some minutes. Plays alongside Mikey Moore. Such a great talent. I know he's only 17, but who cares? let's hope he gets some minutes. I'd really like to see him get some minutes tonight, especially with the news that Papa Sarr has got an injury. Basuma's got an injury. In fact, if you haven't got an injury, there's something wrong with you.
Do you think
Who
he
doesn't
will get
have
minutes though, Johnny? Because hasn't Alisessi been on the bench for about 16, 17 games so far this season?
I know. I don't know what he's doing. If he's carrying water for the players, I'm not actually sure. But give the guy a sniff.
Can I ask you a quick question? There's been rumours that Tyrese Hall is, looking for a loan move and that there's a lot of interest in him. Why is Alisessi being called up ahead of him, in your opinion? Because Tyrese Hall was absolutely one of the best players for the under-21s last year.
I think that he sort of fell off a bit, and I think Callum Alisessi has always been. I'm not saying Tyrese is no good because he's got high expectations, but sometimes a loan out will do good. Look at what's happened to Donnelly and Josh Keeley. But Oluwisi, I think him and Mikey Moore have come through together in the squad. They're the same age, both 17 years of age, both England internationals. I think there's something about him. He's captain of the under-18s a few times. I'd like to see him get minutes. I think it is a little bit early, probably for him, to be talking about first team and all the rest of it. I'm not saying that. But, in the current state of affairs, give them a sniff, give them hope, give the kids hope that there is a path to the first team. Because I'll tell you right now, if you drop Pochettino into this squad right now, I'm telling you, he'd be loving it. He'd be absolutely loving it. And you'll be seeing players that he'd be bringing through, nurturing. And suddenly we'd be talking about our next group of incredible talent, which I believe we do have.
No, 100%. Absolutely 100%. Look, the problem is Pochettino ain't going anywhere, with that World Cup coming up. That's the massive problem. But what I will say is I do think there is a narrative around Ange that, he's not using youngsters. And obviously there's been an element that he's been forced, but he has played more academy youngsters than any other manager since Pochettino. He has had more youngsters on the pitch, at one time, and teenagers on the pitch than any other team this season. So, I do think there has to be a degree that, Postecoglou is giving he's not giving all of them, game time, but he is giving certain ones game time. But Johnny, I know you're very, very busy, my man. I know you have to pop off, and I honestly, we don't want you to get in trouble with the wife either. So you go and do what you need to do. Keep her happy, my man, and we'll speak again soon.
Thanks. And guys, if you get time, Sean and I have launched Football Link. The link is down there or in the line somewhere along the line. And we just dropped a little video there, short one, on tonight's huge game between PSG and Man City. Sudden death, one could go out. And around about 10, we'll be dropping the transfer news. Thanks for having me on. Any support, much appreciated. Jack, Sam, Dave.
Well done as always, Johnny.
And come on, you Spurs. Come on,
you Spurs. See you soon,
by the way, guys, how sharp does Johnny look today? I hope that's my idol now. I need to look that sharp when I get another 4 or 5 years older. But Jack, where are we off to now? What have we got left to discuss?
Yeah, that's my kind of style. Blaine Devlin gifted out 5 memberships earlier. Thank you very much, Blaine. And also had a good comment that I might have starred, but let me catch up and find those memberships. KM was gifted a membership. Make your debut, KM. See you in the chat lots of times. Adam as well. Overseas Bad Actor. Great name. Lasego Matsamela. Great name. Also gifted one. I think we've seen Lasego before in the chat, so make your debut. Chris Foster as well gifted one. So thank you very much, Blaine. I really do appreciate it. And like I'm saying, we're fan show was really busy last time, but I always like seeing a debut. I always like seeing someone who's wants to come on, give their say, give a different opinion, or just want to have a different voice, a different opinion out there. So please make the debut. Would make my day, make my world. And I think, Dave, maybe sort of final question might have been around sort of, the kind of maybe Ange Postecoglou's struggles, being down to himself or maybe down more to the players. I guess it's kind of a conclusion type question, maybe to wrap things up. So we'll go to Sam first on it. Sam, just the struggles in general that Spurs have been going through. If you were to put it down to one or the other, I'm sorry, I'm not going to really accept, a both. I think you might have to sort of lean down toward one or the other. But if you put sort of all the struggles into a bowl, if you put all the struggles, on paper, what would be the main driver behind it? Do you think it's down to the players just not being good enough, not wanting it enough? Or do you think it's just down to the players not down to the manager? Do you think it's down to the manager or the players? If it's down to the manager, then you would think that the next manager could do better with the squad of players. Or if you think it's down to the players, then you wouldn't think that the next manager would do much better. So what do you put down the struggles to? Whose fault is it?
Okay. I'm going to caveat it before I'll answer it. I'll answer it definitively, but I will say the players are not blameless. Like, there's too many players that aren't pulling their weight, too many leaders and people in the leadership group that aren't doing enough. But ultimately, if I had to pick one, I would say it's Ange, because, and I get people will say these are the players that Spurs players throw the manager under the bus every season. And you can get rid of the manager, but the players stay the same. And I'll actually argue that and say, what players are the same now? We've basically got Son and Ben Davis. They're the only ones that have been here kind of throughout the whole of this supposed, B team throwing their toys out the pram and not doing enough in the cups, and then players just not playing for managers. But I just think, and I said it before, I just think that Ange should be getting more out of the team. And I think that his kamikaze football, as much as in theory it's super exciting, has led us down this dark alleyway where we've ended up, meeting a shady character that resembles Tommy Tonks from Tamworth, the kind of figure that you wouldn't want to see in one of these alleyways. And it's difficult to it's difficult to not also say it is the players, because I'm trying to be more definitive.
Yeah, because the players have been frustrating.
Yeah, but I just think that we've seen Ange neglect parts of his squad that, had he just given them the run, I think we would have ended up in a different position. It's do you want to see Reguilon play week in, week out? I've been here many, many times saying I don't rate Reguilon, right? But when you've got no fullbacks, you've got Pedro Porro playing every week. And I did see a quote from Porro saying people keep saying to him, you need to be rested and all this and all that. And he said, I'm a football player. I do this. This is what I do. If the manager asks me to play, I play. Like, we're supposed to play every game, which I think is admirable. But I think is also a bit of Pedro trying to rally behind the manager a little bit, because I think you saw after the game he did that to the fans, let's come together, right? And stick together and back the manager. But I just think that Jed Spence, Reguilon, not playing some of the youngsters earlier. I look at the likes of Ashley Phillips last season. We've had an injury crisis for the last year and a half, right? But we basically had an injury crisis since Ange came in. So I don't want to go too hard on him to say it's 100% his fault. He's done this to us. But at the same time, I do think that he does take a heavy portion of the blame. And if I had to put it to be a bit more balanced, if I had to say what the proportions of blame is, I'm leaning 60-40 towards Ange. And maybe that's not, I'm not overly saying, Ange is 100% the problem, but I think he's more of a problem than the players have been, personally.
Did exactly what I was looking for, Sam. I don't think it is inherently one or the other, but if I could get one, sort of leaning towards one side or the other, that would be great. And you did exactly that for me. So thanks for handling that.
Just quickly, and then we'll get into listeners' questions, because I know we have a watch along to go do, and I need to finish off my predicted lineup as well. But I'm sort of a little bit different to Sam. Look, is Postecoglou blameless? No. Should he be getting better out of players? Yes. Can you question his in-game management? Yes. But, you know, fans made Jose Mourinho the problem. He went on to win. We're still in this mess. Fans made Conte or Nuno the problem. Look what he's doing at Forest. We're still in this mess. He also went out to Saudi Arabia and went out there, by the way. Look what Nuno, many fans, Nuno's the problem. He's not doing this. He's not doing that, etc., etc., etc. I heard it all. What's he doing at Napoli right now? So for me, you know, Ange Postecoglou will move on. We'll still be in this mess. So for me, it's more inherent at the football club than it is the manager. I will always give the club more blame than the manager. You look at Enix's tenure, 24 years, 11 managers. That's 2 years per manager. You look at teams that win things. They have managers in the dugout 4, 5, 6, 7 years, continuously building. Soon as first sight of trouble, we absolutely change direction and panic and stuff like that. If you want to win stuff, there has to be consistency in the dugout. Now, I'm not sitting here and saying, you know, I'm just the right man to rally that behind and stuff like that. But you've got to, you've got to look at patterns. You can't ignore what's gone on before. You know, all this stuff we're hearing about Ange now, you know, he's taking blame for, you know. Even down to the training is the latest one. You know, they're talking about moaning about staying in the hotel the night before a game. Go back and look what they said on the content. They said the exact same thing. They don't like staying in the hotel the night before a game. They're moaning about the training methods. They moaned about Conte's training methods as well. They moaned about Jose's as well. The problem is at Tottenham Hotspur, we've set the precedent that the dressing room runs this football club. If they don't want a manager, they go straight to Daniel Levy, get him out the door, or we'll make every excuse possible to get him out the door and let him take blame rather than us. Now, we fell under that trap under the previous squad with your Dyers and all of that. But what we've seen is just new manager bounces and the same shit continue. We have to break this cycle at some point. And that's why I blame the football club more than I blame Ange Postecoglou. Like I said, Postecoglou isn't blameless, but this is more on the football club than Ange, in my opinion.
And like Dave said, we do actually, by the way, everybody on Big Up later. I'm going to put the link into the chat. I put Sam's Twitter in as well, but we are going to be doing a neutral watch along for the Man City PSG game. So please join us for it. If you want to have a chat with us, hang out, talk about life, talk about Spurs, whatever that might be, whatever's on your mind. Please join us, hang out with us. Let's take some of these members' comments. By the way, everybody.
Jack, before you go in, sorry, put Sean Maddox's comment up. His latest one.
Dave cheated choosing a third option.
Yeah, making me out to look like the bad guy. I've got to go and talk about the players.
I think he did pick
I think
he picked it more on the players.
This is Sean's problem. He doesn't listen. He listens to half of what he wants and then throws in the comment. Listen to fully what I'm saying, Sean.
I think in the beginning he did say, I'm leaning. I disagree with Sam. I think he's saying I'm putting it on the players.
I said I was blaming the club for the problem for 99%.
Yeah, but the club wasn't an option.
Well, it was the players or the manager.
Okay. Well, then, to finish off my answer, I blame the playing squad.
All right. So then,
and just caveat that you listen to Pedro Porro's interview today, or the words that came out from Pedro Porro. He says, "I'm doing this outside to prevent injury and stuff like that." Well, you look at it, he's one of the only players that haven't been injured. Is there something to that? Is he alluding that other players aren't doing that and they're happy to let the manager take the blame rather than looking at themselves? I think there's more that needs to be looked into that. So for me, I blame the playing squad more than I blame the manager. Again, we fell for it under previous with Lloris, Dyers and all that with Conte, Jose, Nune. The same shit continued. So for me, it's on the playing squad.
By the way, everybody, smash the like button too, please, on the way out. We don't usually ask that often, but there was well over 200 plus people in the stream the whole time, and I'm not even sure if we've even hit 100 likes. So I'd like to think that at least half of you happen to join the stream. So please smash it for us, especially while we're wrapping things up. Also, if you are a member, by the way, if you are a member, you can put in your comments before the stream. We like to take a little bit of time to answer any of your questions you might have. So this is a little extra perk that you guys do get in case you weren't aware. Tartan Spurs, I think this is Wilson 94, saying big up Dave and Jack and the rest of the panel. Question for me is this: with Tottenham having world-class facilities and increased revenue streams, should Daniel Levy be more aggressive in player investment, or does the club risk repeating past financial mistakes? I'm on the understanding that in the 80s, Irving Scholar had the issue of trying to stabilize the club, provide different means of revenue. However, in the end, he had serious financial issues, which led to Sugar arriving at the club. Moving forward today, why wouldn't we take more risks in the market for better caliber players for higher rewards, trophies, and similar quality players? to Harry Kane. So basically the question is, and Sam or Dave can take it. The question is, why are we holding back from basically taking more risks, financially? Is there a reason that Daniel Levy has for basically being so safe?
So if you want to answer, Dave, you can.
No, I'm just going to be quick. It's a one-word answer, Sam, and you could come in one line. Look, Daniel Levy's a trained accountant. They're trained to go with the numbers and not take risks. They're trained to not be risk averse. So I think that's therein lies your biggest problem.
I agree, and I think that it all goes down to one fateful summer where the club sold Gareth Bale, and we brought in the famous Gareth Bale 7. He got burnt on pretty much every single one except for Christian Eriksen, and he basically said, never again.
DJ AK saying, in recent weeks, with results and injuries proving the board yet again underachieving and not fully backing the manager and only winning one cup in their tenure, do we as fans have some blame and responsibility for allowing mediocrity to become a normality at our club and not put pressure on the board to do more instead of just reacting when results go bad? I feel as a fan base, we are reactive and not proactive. If we really wanted things to change, we all know why the club has failed for so long. So many managers have left and achieved. This is a board issue, always has been for me. Your thoughts? Cheers. Basically, he's saying, why aren't we doing more as a fan base? Like, should we take on more action, more responsibility ourselves for what's going wrong at the football club? I think it's the question.
Look, I can understand what he says to a degree, and I think, could Spurs fans show more resilience in the face of adversity? I think so. And I go back to the Super League. You look at numbers that Chelsea fans were able to get out, Arsenal fans were able to get out, compared to Tottenham fans, absolutely night and day. So I do think in that regard, yes, fans could do more, to put more pressure on this football club, etc. But one of the big problems you've also got is the majority of Tottenham's fan base is worldwide. It's a global club now. Not a lot of them live in the likes of the UK and that. And look, what you see in general on social media is you see Levy out everywhere. You see people moaning about the owners and stuff. But what you never see is mass people down at the protests coming together. And until that happens, you're never really going to affect the owner's decisions to want to sell, or maybe, force, not force, because you're never going to force a billionaire to do what you want them to do. But, maybe make them think differently, going, look, do I really need this hassle? This protest all the time. It's mass numbers, the media, it's gathering momentum and stuff like that. So until that happens, you're never really going to see the change. At the end of the day, fans that are disgruntled are doing all they can, but until you get more numbers down on the streets, because the majority of the fan base is worldwide, therein lies a big problem. But then again, it's not really an excuse. Like I said, you look at the Super League and the numbers that Arsenal and Chelsea were able to get down, and unanimously straight away they got their board to be able to come out and change their decision, because the amount of them, when you look at ours, it was minuscule compared to theirs.
I personally, DJ, I understand what you're trying to say about how the fans could play a bigger part in either protests or calling action to Levy. At the end of the day, the fans only have so much impact really on the ownership. A lot of it usually just comes down to how can you hurt their pockets and how can you hurt their actual revenue that's being taken in. And I just don't know if there are many is that people are talking about the favorites page. It wasn't my profile, luckily enough. But I don't know. I just think with Daniel Levy, I think, the only way he's going to really respond is if, his pocket is being hurt by the Spurs fans. And that comes to season tickets, to investing in, sort of gear, club merchandise, various sort of things. And if I think if there's a huge majority of Spurs fans that maybe try to hurt his pockets that way, then I think you start to see some change. But also as well, I think, just calling him out on a regular basis will eventually, bring more light to the situation. I just think the more attention that you do try to draw to him via the media, via streams like this, or protests at the ground, however big or small, I do think that just eventually draws more and more attention towards Daniel Levy, and then hopefully gets us more of what we want in the long run. But there's only so much impact that I think fans can actually have, at a football club. Really, that's just the way that I see it. Not saying I'm right or that I'm wrong. I think we
The
had
biggest
one more.
thing you need at a football club is you just need numbers to come together. You need thousands to come together, and until that happens, it's very hard to get any sort of momentum shift.
Yeah, 100%. Gonna do one more, I believe, here. Dropkicker teacher asking us, when do you see our next win incoming? The fact that we couldn't even break down Everton doesn't give me much hope for tomorrow or Sunday. We could easily go winless until April. Do you think Solanke was the wrong striker to bring in? I've been watching Palace highlights, and Mateta is the exact profile. I don't know about that. I'm saying we should bring in Mateta specifically, but he's a guy that would like to do so much better. I'm just going to, Artist, love you, man. I'm just going to say I disagree. I think you're being a little harsh on Solanke there by saying Mateta would be 1,000 times better. It's just Mateta's a donkey, man. But I do get what you mean by the fact that he offers that physical play. I'm the sort of guy who likes a big physical number 9. Mateta is one of them. I do think, though, he's a bit too clumsy for me, though, and can be a bit too frustrating. Whereas Solanke, I do think Solanke is far less clunky, far less just annoying to watch. And you watched him last season. Like, the guy can score goals. I just think what he's missing is that service and good players around him. That's just me, though. And I can criticize maybe other elements of his game, but I might have to disagree with that first part. Maybe I'll give the other question to somebody. Do you think fans would be Ange out if he didn't know how to talk? Personally, I think he's a fraud, and it's just the kind of guy that has good PR skills and knows what to say. That's interesting. Sam, maybe give that one to you. Do you think it's just because he's got good charisma, Ange? That's why he's still in the job?
No, I don't, because I actually think the opposite sometimes. I think that, he can come across as like, just a genuine, just an ordinary bloke, and I think that maybe is a bit what he's maybe more referring to. But there's been moments, a decent number of moments, where I've thought, you're doing a few of the things that I've criticized Jurgen Klopp for in the past, like snapping at reporters and stuff like that. I know that some reporters are just there to like piss you off, their sole purpose is to get some sort of reaction out of you after a loss, for example. But I just think, like, every week we see, and I don't subscribe to this, but every week we see people saying, oh, well, my mum told me if they don't look you in the eye when you're talking to them, they must not be telling the truth, or like, he's always looking down. And it's like, okay, I get that. And yes, it does annoy me a little bit that he's got his head down, but I don't know. I just think that there's a whole host of reasons why Ange is still here, and there's a whole host of reasons why people believe he should be gone. I don't think it comes to do with anything to do with the media. Like, I think he's a personality. Do I think he's a good talker? Not really.
Mm-hmm. I know what you mean. I think you kind of also probably going to answer to a degree his second question there. Do you see us getting 40 points this season, Dave?
Look, you won't even need 42 points to survive this season. I think once you reach 32, which we're 2 more wins away from, I think you're more or less safe. You're looking at the other teams down the bottom, 16 points. You look at the likes of Ipswich, Southampton. Did they have a 20 points in them at come the back end of this campaign? I don't think so. Will we get 40 points that we have? I'm not quite so sure. Let's wait and see what happens. Let's wait and see what happens. But I do want to say just quickly, look, I get, Ange Postecoglou isn't winning games of football, right? That naturally makes him a divisive man. But, I don't want to get into the realms of nitpicking and picking apart every part of the human being. I think that's getting to, ridiculous natures, to try and get this guy out of the club. At the end of the day, he keeps losing games. The writing's already on the wall anyway. But I don't want to go into the realms of nitpicking and all that sort of, because we've done that with Antonio Conte, where, picking at his demeanor, his character and everything else. And it's getting ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. And then he wanted to end off with something positive. I'll end at something positive. What's everyone having for dinner tonight? What are your dinner for tonight? Not sure what my dinner plans are tonight. I think I'm seeing my family later tonight. Maybe I'll end up. I'm not sure what I'll be having, actually. Anybody have any special dinner plans?
No, I think I'm having shepherd's pie, which is basically mincemeat, carrots, onions, and spuds.
Very, very nice. Thank you, Artist T, by the way. And then last and certainly not least, I think this one was just thrown in by Rain Man. Hey, Jack and Dave, do you think fans should start protesting in the stadium? I'll answer this one. I think you always should be. But what if you have frustration with the ownership, if you have frustration with whatever might be going on at the club, could be big or small, right? Could be from the senior season, sort of concessions, being taken away to, various sort of ticket price increases, whether it's big or small, whatever it might be. I think you're totally welcome to protest against the ownership. I think that's your right as a fan, and it's a right as a citizen, and it's a right as a paying customer. I don't think there should ever be an argument that you can't protest, to be honest. You see fans protest over the tiniest of things at various clubs, especially where the ultras, are very sort of persistent about keeping the club accountable at European, type clubs. They'll protest over anything, like the bathroom toilet is flown, and they'll protest about that. So I think you're always allowed to.
On that, just quickly, look, I think protesting in the stadium, I think, loses its impact, is what I would say. And what I mean by that is because you're allowing the stewards to come over, take the banners off you, pop your balloons, etc., so they can limit the damage of, the impact of the protest. I think, maybe two things: go in, pick a minute, everyone leave, go outside, protest, or do the protesting outside the stadium. Wasn't it Valencia not so long ago where they didn't go to the game? They all went stand outside the stadium, protesting and stuff like that. I think that has much more of an impact, seeing the stadium empty with empty seats, rather than actually filling it and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, fair play and massive respect to people that do go inside and try and, get their voices heard. Nothing against it. My personal opinion, though, is you're allowing the club to kind of control it and dampen it down, the effect of it. Whereas if you're outside the stadium, there's absolutely nothing they can do. And I just think empty seats, in terms of cameras, media coverage, it screams so much more, in my opinion. That's just me. But look, should I really have one if I'm not out there, on the front line? Maybe not, but that's just my opinion. And the two Marks show, big up, member for 13 months. Big up to you both, Dave and Jack. Big up, guys. Really enjoyed my debut on the channel as well when I was over there. So, guys, get over there and check them out. And then Blaine Devlin saying he'll also, he'd like to come on the member shows and that. No problem whatsoever, my man. Right now, he's just out in Florida, doing 10-hour days. But when he's back, he'll come on with Blaine.
Brutal.
Be interesting to have a discussion with you. I think, you raise some very valid points and stuff like that. So let's get it done, my man. Let's get it done. But look, we will end it there, guys, because we will be going over to Tifo, or no, sorry, not Tifo, Big Up. We will be doing a watch along for PSG, Man City. Never thought I'd say this, but one of the state-owned, clubs might not make it out this round of the Champions League. So very, very interesting game tonight. Make sure you follow us over. Either way, we'll be celebrating one of the state-owned teams, not being able to progress.
Very, very funny intro there, Dave. Sam, thank you as always, sir. I put in your Twitter a couple of times. Pleasure as always, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Check over. I saw someone, I can't remember the name. I'm sorry to not shout you out. Someone did follow me after I made what I thought was a good point, so I appreciated that. And yeah, look, big up Jack and Dave. Everyone like and subscribe. It's a pleasure coming on here. One of the best channels out there, giving me my space in the community. So I'll be forever grateful. And yeah, look, hopefully things start to get better soon. Hopefully we get a win on the board tomorrow so that we can kind of relax a little bit about the Europa League. And then hopefully we go out and put in a great performance against Leicester, get another manager the sack, and try and build a foundation to push off of, because it is difficult at the moment. It's something like, I know that this is including the summer, but it's something like 9 wins in 9 months. I mean, that is this is Premier League wins. That is just like unacceptable. And they say about football is an entertainment. That is not entertaining. And that's not necessarily a dig at Ange and are you not entertained comment. That's just the facts of it at the moment. So hopefully things go a little bit better for us and we can actually start coming on and just talking about how good we are rather than the crisis and everything.
True that. Thank you, Sam, man.
We
appreciate
pray for
you.
Better days, lads. We pray for better days. But look, I want to say a massive thank you to Sam and Johnny as well. You know, Jack doing the hosting job, good panel today. You know, good job on that. And all you guys at home, really appreciate every single one of you, you know, tuning in, give us in your feedback, you know, your opinions and stuff like that. You know, it's at the end of the day, we could sit here and chat, but if we didn't have you guys to bounce off and push us and all, you know, it'd be quite boring. So thank you very much. And then thank you to Blaine, Shawnee Maddox, Rob Wallace, and the two Marks as well. You know, I've gone the extra mile on the support today, guys. Really do appreciate it. Like I said, follow us up over to Big Up. You want to know more about it, it's in the community section. It's all there for you. Just click on the link, follow us over, and we'll see you over there. If not, plenty of content. If you haven't checked it out, we've done 2 reaction videos, new style content we're bringing you. And look, I think they've gone down pretty well. Might do more of this in the future where we've reacted to what pundits and stuff like that across various, you know, Talk Sport and Sky Sports, etc. have to say about Tottenham. Check that out. Check out the channel predictions and predicted lineup coming out in the morning. See you guys then. As always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. See you later, everyone.